Before we start anything, I want to wish a happy birthday to Jonathan. It's literally today.
We still have a few more minutes.
We still have a couple of more minutes till sunset. So that's why I want to, no introductions. I want you to say something as the custom is, whoever sponsors the class. It costs, what do we do, $450 to cover dinner, Baruch Hashem. And thank you for that. And no better way to celebrate than with fellow Jews. So we get a word from the sponsor before we start. Go for it. Something, and a blessing also for your birthday.
Of course. We'll start with the blessings, right?
Wow. L'chaim. And collectively as a group, we bless you, Jonathan, with health, with success in every area of your life, both personal, global, financial, and everything else together. L'chaim. Okay. The first thing we have to know is that tonight we are in a special time. We find ourselves in the time period on the Jewish calendar. It's called the 3 weeks. 3 weeks of mourning. Between the 17th of Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, we mourn the destruction of the first and second temples. And there are many customs about this time, more sadder customs of abstention. We don't want to engage in things that are too joyful, because it's time of national mourning. At the same time, we also have to heal the wounds. If there's a public Jewish wound, then the entire community has to heal it. And how do we heal the wound? So the Rebbe tells us all the time to study Torah b'tzibur, to study Torah with at least a minyan of Jews, at least 10 or more. Because a minyan represents community, represents unity. And that's what was lacking. That brought about the temple's destruction was the lack of unity. So when we gather together in these big groups, which is a great thing, and here we are doing this tonight, we are a part of the national healing that's required to bring about the coming of Mashiach. So first of all, l'chaim to that. Second of all, it's almost Rosh Chodesh. Oh, look at that. The light goes on. A new month. Yeah, feel free to take some l'chaim that's being passed around from the birthday boy. Some of the shots I see are more serious size than others. I'm not sure.
All right, well, keep pouring. You let me know.
It's like in the Megillah, it says there's no force. There's no force.
Everything is good.
Everyone has. L'chaim, Jonathan, l'chaim again. We're going to have a fun conversation. I was preparing the class tonight. I usually like to take a piece of Zohar from the weekly Torah portion. This week we have a double portion, Matot v'Maseh, the last two portions of the book of Bamidbar. But when I open up the book, so Maseh, the second portion, has no Zohar on it.
Does that happen very often?
No, it doesn't happen often at all. It's very rare.
Very rare.
And Matot, the first portion, has 1 page. So we're going to be pretty much studying all of the Zohar that there is on this Parsha. So I didn't have a lot of topics to choose from. I couldn't choose the easier ones or the funner ones. This is what there is. So.
That wasn't the case with Pinchas.
No. Pinchas, last week's Zohar was one of the biggest Zohars of the entire Torah. So my dad had a lot to choose from. But this one, it's very focused, and I think it's great. It's a great topic. And I want to hear your engagement and your feedback tonight, so I'm looking forward to this. I also want to welcome for a second Jacob to the circle. Thank you. Every additional man in the circle, or in the square, I guess, is additional energy. And there's no commitments. If you like it, you come back. If you don't like it, you drop out. Right? Everybody knows the rules. But every additional person there on the table, and also Jonathan's friend, I didn't get your name. Eric, I did, of course. What's your Jewish name? Hanan Yitzchak. Wow. What a name. Hanan Yitzchak. Oh. I always say, when you're in Jewish settings, use your Jewish name. It's my big thing. You want to go out there in the world, use different names. I wish and I hope for everybody that we always use our Jewish name. But at least in Jewish settings, when you're in shul, when you're at a Torah class, use your Jewish name. Anyway, to the topic. I call the class the Kabbalah of men and women, because it definitely touches on that, the differences between men and women. And a big thing also is going to be about intermarriage. So the first thing is just to get familiar with the story. The story is the beginning, essentially, of this week's Torah portion. Moshe Rabbeinu is told that his last mission on this earth is to lead the Jews in a war against the nation of Midian. The nation of Midian became associated with a very terrible stain on the Jewish people. Because a couple of weeks ago in the Torah, what happened was, after Bilam tried to curse the Jews and it didn't work, he advised that they send a Midianite woman to seduce the Jewish people, and many Jewish people fell for that. And there was an epidemic that broke out. 24,000 Jews died. And in this way, Midian became the symbol of wickedness, the seductive power of evil. And Hashem said that your last mission as the leader of the Jewish people is to fight a war to annihilate this nation. Huh? Yeah, Midian did its, well, Midian provided some good things in the beginning, and then they went south. So the war is fought. The Jews bring back a bunch of spoils, but they also bring back hostages, prisoners of war. So here, I actually put it in the handout, the first source. Source 1, straight quote from the Torah. It says here, Moshe became angry with the officers of the army, the commanders of thousands and the commanders of hundreds, who had returned from the campaign of war. Moshe said to them, did you allow all the females to live? They were the same ones who were involved with the children of Israel on Bilam's advice to betray the Lord over the incident of Peor, resulting in a plague among the congregation of the Lord. It's like, are you kidding? These are the same ones. In fact, the Talmud says they were able to actually point at some women and know who seduced who. That's a huge embarrassment. You can't leave such people alive. So now, Moshe gives the instruction, kill every male child, because the men had already been killed in the basic war. But the male children need to be killed, and every woman who can lie intimately with a man, you shall kill. And all the young girls who have no experience of intimate relations with a man, you may keep alive for yourselves. Yeah, that's the passage. It's a little harsh, a little controversial. We love controversial here. That's my jam. Controversial. So on a simple level, tonight we're going to dive into this on a deeper level. On a simple level, we understand that males carry the vengeful character traits. And if the boy grows up and finds out that his father was killed on a certain mission, there's a very big chance that he's going to have a vendetta for that and want to take that back. So that is part of the justification for the male children's killing. I'm not going to focus on that tonight. Tonight I want to more be focused on the women. The women are differentiated into two categories. Those that have had relations and those that have not. The ones that have had relations with Gentile men, they have to be killed. They're not to be allowed into the Jewish nation. The ones who have not are to be taken, and as the commentaries explain, they're going to be converted, and Jews can marry them. So the question is, what is the secret meaning? What is the deeper dimension of this piece of Torah? So, in source 2, we have the Zohar. And we're going to kind of take this piece by piece and see how we can understand it best. Based on what we know from the teachings of Chassidus, based on what we know from the insights that have been handed down to us from teacher to student, Kabbalist to Kabbalist. The first paragraph on the bottom of page 1 says like this: come and see. Rabbi Elazar said, in the Zohar, everything is come and see. In the Gemara, in the Talmud, it's always tashema, come and hear. In the Zohar, it's always come and see. Why? What's the difference between seeing and hearing?
Experiential.
Yes. When you hear something, it always remains a little bit foreign from you. When you see something, it changes you. Right? Seeing is believing. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Nobody can change your mind about what you saw. I know it when I see it. Exactly. And then multiple such sayings. That's why hearing doesn't go as deep as seeing does. Seeing becomes embedded, it becomes etched into you. And that's the difference between Talmud and Kabbalah. That's the difference between the revealed part of the Torah and the hidden part of the Torah. As long as you're in the revealed part of the Torah, as long as you're just studying the legal parts, all you're going to be having, or the only relationship you'll have with the Torah is a relationship of hearing. Tashema. It'll always remain somewhat removed from you and will never reach as deeply within you. But once you enter the realm of the Zohar, once you enter the realm of Kabbalah, once you dive into the secrets of the Torah, now you get to see. Your eyes are open. A new dimension is revealed to you in a way that changes you forever. You never stay the same after a little series on Kabbalah. Hopefully, we come to these classes every week. Right? We have to be changed. We're being exposed to a level of sight in the Torah. Now you get to see the truth, not just hear it. So it always begins with come and see. What does it say in this case? Come and see. Rabbi Elazar said, every woman is called din, judgment, until she tastes the taste of rachamim, compassion, which is the male. For it has been taught, white emerges from the male side, and red emerges from the female side. When the female tastes the white, she understands that it is better for her with the white. Okay. We got to unpack this a little bit. So, a couple things are coming up here. First of all, the characterization of women as judgment and men as compassion. That's number one. Judgment and compassion correspond to the colors, white and red. It's the same thing. White is the compassion, merciful. Red is judgment, the gevura, which is why the Gemara says, which is the piece that the Zohar is referencing over here, the two parts of our body mass, the white part is reference to the bones. The red part is reference to the sinew, the flesh, the muscle. The man helps produce the bone, the woman helps produce the flesh. And so we have a woman who is judgment, a man who is compassion. When the woman meets the man, she understands that the true harmony is here. Okay. So I want to hear some of your thoughts, because when you say the word judgment versus compassion, the typical association is that judgment means harshness, and compassion is like soft, which is seemingly the opposite of how we like to at least define men and women. Men are the more aggressive type, the go-getters, the outgoing. Women are the more refined, subtle, dainty. So how do you understand when you hear the Zohar saying that a woman is judgment and a man is compassion? Does anybody have a thought? You don't have to invent one, but if something comes to your mind, I'm interested to hear what it is. I'll tell you what, it's not fully clear to me, honestly. Looking in the commentaries, it definitely aligns. When we say din and rachamim, it definitely aligns with the general polarity of chesed versus gevura. And one way to think about, and I'm just suggesting one way, to think about the association of men with chesed and women with gevura is similar to what I once spoke about when we were talking about the tribe of Levi and gevura. And that is that just because we're taught to associate gevura with strength and toughness, it's not necessarily the right translation. Gevura, more of the essential definition, is the power. It's the power of restraint. It's the power of being withdrawn. And it's the power of being able to hold the fort. In that sense, the truest type of gevura is not the loud one. You know, they say when you go to, I'm no businessman, but you guys can probably confirm it. They say when you go into a business meeting, who's the most powerful person? The quietest. The CEO is the one who doesn't say much in the meeting. All the loudmouths, they're lower on the ladder. Because the people in power, you don't have to be loud. You don't have to be shouting to be the truth. You know, truth, one of the hallmarks of truth is that truth doesn't have to sell itself. If somebody's constantly selling themselves, little red flag. And it's not weakness. It's gevura. What does gevura mean? Strength. The ultimate strength is to be found not in the hustle bustle, not in the noise, but in the quiet and in the stillness. And so in that way, we associate the feminine power with the power of restraint, reservedness, but no monkey business. Like you said, discernment between truth and falsehood, there's no room for that. The values, when a woman decides on the values in the home, there's no negotiating. There's no compromising. She executes judgment the way she sees fit. And the contrast to that, when we say compassion, to have compassion takes engagement. To have compassion demands action, putting yourself front and center, even when it's not pretty. And in that sense, the higher form of compassion requires being a go-getter, requires going out of the comfort zone, something which is typically associated with the masculine energy. And it ties right in to the conversation about how we define men and women in Kabbalah. Because one term you'll hear often is mashpia and mekabel. It's a very famous term. And your typical English translation will say giver and receiver. Mekabel sounds like, a taker, giver and receiver. And that's so inaccurate, it couldn't be further from the truth. The way Kabbalah sees it, and especially as it's expounded in Hasidus, women are actually even bigger givers than men. Not only are they bigger givers, they're infinitely bigger givers. You give something to a woman, she gives you back infinite upgrade. Let's talk about biologically. What do we contribute to the creation of a child? A putrid drop, as Pirkei Avot says. 9 months later, what does the woman spit out?
Compassion.
A child. A child with a consciousness. A child with intelligence. A child with trillions of cells. You cannot trace the path from a tiny piece of semen to a functioning human being.
That's power.
That's the feminine power. Let's go a little different model of male and female. The Zohar talks to us a lot. The power of vegetation. You put a seed into the ground. A couple of years later, what do you have? A fully functioning tree with fruit that can reproduce for generations to come. You put in a tiny seed. That's the male. The earth is the female. The return on the investment is infinite upgrade. What's the key, though? If men are givers and women are even bigger givers, so what value do we have? What's our value? In the narrative of giver and taker, we kind of feel good. We're the giver, they're the taker. But in the narrative of giver and bigger giver, what's our value? And this is fundamental. The men must give first.
Even before we get to give, we have to woo, and you have to.
Yes. Well, that's the whole thing. The way I like to say it, better than givers and takers. Men are initiators and women are responders. It says nothing about the quality of what each contributes. Women will always contribute much more quantitatively and qualitatively. However, the men must initiate. So picture the scene. Man has a rough day at work. The world was beating him up. He comes home, upset, carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. He's all preoccupied. Doesn't really give his wife much attention. But she starts venting anyway. He answers back. There's an explosion before you know it, and the whole thing is down the drain. Why? What did he do wrong? Didn't do anything wrong.
He didn't initiate.
Yes. He wasn't cognizant of his capacity and responsibility. Instead, he came first focusing on his own needs. He was upset, carrying the day. Flip the switch, and if you're married for longer than me, so you guys can testify to this better than me. You come in even after a hard day of work. Take a minute for yourself, 60 seconds before you walk in the door. Recalibrate and put the focus on being an initiator and taking care of something that your wife needs. Now you walk into the door, all you have to say, "Hi, honey. How was your day? How was your day?" Okay? Or whatever the variation of that is for you. Now, first of all, you're going to get back infinite upgrade because she's going to tell you all about her day and talk too much for 2 hours. But the care that you'll receive in return for yourself will be infinite. She will give back more than you could ever give, but because you gave first. If you come to receive, you're done for. You're done for. It's the same is true, by the way, within the intimate relationship. Within the intimate relationship, when a man, and we're guilty of this, I mean, we can all relate to it. Nobody wants all the long-winded experiences. We just want to get in and get out. But that's us coming to receive. That flips, that the tables are turned. That's the wrong way. But when you come to initiate, to take care, then the return is always infinitely more.
That's with Zohar.
Yes, that's what I heard on the recording. I wasn't there, but yeah.
You heard it.
Another analogy is weekday and Shabbos. 6th day of the week is considered the male. We work with this. Shabbos is the female, the responder. You put a couple of potatoes and beans in the pot. 24 hours later, a chalent. Infinite upgrade. Infinite upgrade from the potatoes and the beans. Chalent. A giver and a taker is like beer in a cup. Yeah? I can only put as much beer as there is space in the cup. That's the giver, that's the taker. But this taker cannot give me back anything more than what was put inside. That's not what a woman is. That's not what Kabbalistic feminine energy is. Kabbalistic feminine energy is a responder. A responder that gives back more than you could ever have hoped for, so long as you come in with care. And that's my other spin on the men being compassion. Compassion in the sense of care, compassion in the sense of otherness before oneself. That's the responsibility of man. Compassion as protector, compassion as provider, compassion as the source of resources. Judgment as in manager, judgment as in decision maker, judgment as in the nitty-gritty details of what needs to be done. That's the best way to look at a couple's relationship. The CEO and the manager. The CEO decides the spirit of the company, but the manager makes all the decisions on the ground. Now, the woman, and this is what the Zohar's meaning is, when we say, when the female tastes the taste of rachamim, right? The female tastes the white, she understands that it is better for her with the white. That's the harmony. That's the harmony of the union between man and woman. A woman who thinks that she can do it all on her own, not only is mistaken, but is harming herself. The Rebbe would always talk about this when he spoke about the rise of feminism, how they distorted the whole mission. Instead of trying to make women equally powerful as men, they tried, or they told women that in order to have status, you have to be like men. The liberation of the woman was that what? Now we can be like men. We can dress like men, we can work like men, we can this like men. The complete opposite of what the spirit of feminism was supposed to be. Liberation of the feminine role. equal rights for men and women, but not equal roles for men and women. That's foolishness. As we get closer to Mashiach, the female role gets more prominence. But we have to stick to the female role in order to appreciate that. The woman is most respected when she's most true to herself, as the man is respected when he's most true to himself. Different roles, equal power. That is the model within the Jewish framework. The man versus the woman energy. Now take a look at the next paragraph. It's on page 2 in the Zohar. Okay? Here it says like this. Okay, now don't shoot me till we finish reading and explaining. Come and see. Why did the Torah forbid the Gentile women who had engaged in relations with men? That's the story that we referenced before. Any woman who engaged in relations, forbidden to join the Jewish people, has to be annihilated. Because we have learned that there is right and there is left. Jews and Gentiles, Gan Eden and Gehinom, this world and the world to come. Jews correspond to Rachamim, and Gentiles correspond to Din. So now we're widening the arena. Within the Jewish framework, men and women, men are the Rachamim, women are the Din. When you zoom out and you pit the Jew versus the Gentile, I don't want to say against, but the Jew versus the Gentile, yeah? The Jew is Rachamim, and the Gentile is Din. So says the Zohar, we have further learned that when a woman tastes the taste of Rachamim, in this case it means she marries a Jew, the Rachamim prevails over her innate Din. That was the line at the end of the other page, right? When a woman tastes the white, it's better for her with the white. And that's because, in general, compassion is supposed to tame the extremeness of just judgment. Yeah, there's a famous line in the Midrash. No, it's a merge. It's a harmony. There's a famous Midrash which says that in the beginning Hashem wanted to create the world with only din, with only judgment. And then he saw that the world couldn't last. Shitef bo midat harachamim. So he partnered up the compassion, which there's the mimer about that. Din is polar. Din cannot stand going out of line. Initially, that was the model of reality that Hashem had planned. But then, there's no room for flexibility. So, the compassion tames the din. And so it is within every man-woman relationship, within the Jewish framework, when a woman marries a man and they're both Jewish, so the woman's inherent din is tamed by the rachamim. Listen to this. But when a woman tastes the taste of din, i.e. she marries a Gentile, din sticks to din. In other words, it's compounded, not tamed. The verse says about such a couple, dogs are brazen, they do not know satiation. About such a woman we have learned, she who has relations with a Gentile is bound to him like a dog. For just like a dog is tough-spirited and brazen, so too here when din unites with din, she is brazen in every area. What is the meaning of this passage? In context, this is a quote from the Talmud. The Talmud is talking about that when a woman engages in relations with a Gentile man, she stays attached to his energy, even in the world to come. Like a dog, because dogs were considered to be very, very loyal, very faithful. Right? Once a dog finds its owner, it sticks. But the deeper meaning is, Kelev carries the attribute of justice, of severity, of gevura. And a woman carries, by default, the power of gevura. When harshness meets harshness, there's an explosion of harshness. This is like the secret meaning behind the problem of intermarriage. You know, I was having a conversation about this today with a couple of friends, actually. What's the problem with intermarriage? You know, a dad hears that his kid is about to marry out. What do you when you typically have the conversation? What's the
What are the kids gonna be?
what are the kids going to be?
Yeah, confusion. The kids-
Confusion?
Yeah, well,
Yeah. What else?
What are you gonna do at Hanukkah? Are we gonna have a Hanukkah bush? Or are we gonna have...
Okay.
Different holidays.
Different cultures.
That's right. Are you gonna have a bris?
Is it going to be a bris or is it going to be a fight? Right? Things that are self-understood to the Jewish partner are so not self-understood to the non-Jewish one, and it comes out in times of crisis. I don't know, remember when October 7th happened, there was all these texts going around from the interfaith couples that were struggling.
They could always pull the Jew card from the fighting.
Huh?
They could always pull a Jew card from the fights.
How do you mean?
Throw it in your face situation.
Oh, in fight they could pull the Jew card. Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, they always say, down the line you won't be able to participate in the Jewish celebrations and what else? The kids will find out sooner or later that they've been betrayed.
For us, the kids won't be Jewish.
In some cases, the kids won't be Jewish. If it's a man marrying the non-Jewish woman, yeah.
It's the other way around. I mean, if it's a Jewish... It's a...
Jewish woman marrying a man, you still say the confusion card, right?
The kid has a choice to whether they want to be Jewish or not.
No, if the mom is Jewish, the kid's Jewish.
I have friends that are in mixed couples.
Okay.
And the wife is Jewish.
Yeah,
And the husband is not.
Yeah.
They brought their kids up Jewish.
yes.
And also taught them, all about all religions rather than just their own faith.
So you're making
So
the,
they understand everything.
that's not everything.
So that's the last line of Jew.
So you're going against the confusion concept.
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
going against the education concept.
Against the education concept.
Being able to educate on both sides.
It's okay.
Marry and then find out from there.
But if she's
Okay.
the shiksa,
Well, if she's the non-Jew, then of course the kids are non-Jewish. Yeah, you hear this a lot as a counterpoint.
she's the dog to the stuff.
Huh? Hold on, we're getting there.
I mean, it's just a better
Um,
person not to let your daughter.
What else do you hear? You hear, I actually once saw this on a video. This was very profound to me. I went to the GEM headquarters. GEM is Jewish Educational Media. That's where they restore all the video footage of the Rebbe. And they have these videos of private moments. They have these videos of private moments that were not released to the public ever. And one time I was on a little tour and they showed us some clips that were never before seen in GEM in New York, in their headquarters. So they blur out. It's a meeting of people with the Rebbe. They blur out the people and you just hear the conversation and what the Rebbe said. And there was a couple that was asking the Rebbe for advice about intermarriage. And the Rebbe said, thank you. Just pass that over here, yeah. And the Rebbe said, over 90% of intermarried couples end in divorce. And then the Rebbe added, and this is the line, the kicker. And the Rebbe added, and if not in revealed divorce, then in hidden divorce. Huh? Either case. Yes. Again, this is it. And I was talking in English, that's not in Yiddish. Over 90% of intermarried couples get divorced, and if not revealed divorce, then hidden divorce. What is hidden divorce? Hidden divorce means infighting. Hidden divorce means no intimate relationship. Hidden divorce means no harmony, discord, and yeah. But the problem that I have with all of these arguments, they're all valid arguments, okay, and they all need to be discussed, and different arguments touch different people. But the fundamental lack of these arguments is that they're all occupied with consequences. Consequences. If you do this, then this. Right? They don't attack the marriage. They just say, you want a good life, you want Jewish kids, you want no fights later down the line, It's all focused on the consequences. And that's missing something integral. That is not the real problem with intermarriage. Those are things that may or may not happen. He was just making a case, maybe it won't happen. Some families are very lucky, they can educate their kids not to be confused. Or so they say. What's the real problem with intermarriage? I think to define it, you have to ask the question the other way around. What is the reason to get married? What is the reason to get married? And I know it sounds like a childish question, But the more we see how degenerated society has become, the more this question becomes powerful. Because suddenly, every reason you provide for marriage can be reached without marriage. And I'll have this conversation with young adults all the time when we talk about this. Why get married? For kids. No, you can have kids out of a marriage. The only good reason is tax break. Maybe that's what I had. That has no rebuttal.
Hardly.
What do you mean? For companionship,
It's not economics.
you don't need. It's not for economics. For companionship, you just get a companion, get a girlfriend. I don't know. Go to your mother. You want support? Someone could support you out of a marriage. You want commitment out of a marriage. I'm so committed to my boyfriend. I hear it all the time. My girlfriend, whatever it is. There is no reason you can use to convince me why you should get married.
There's only one.
There's only one.
Yeah, Hashem says so.
And what is the reason?
Hashem says to do it.
In my opinion, that is the only compelling reason to get married, because it's God's way. God said it at creation. Al kain ya'azov ish et aviv ve'et imo. Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother, v'davak bi'ishto v'hayu lebasar echad, cling to his wife, and they will become one flesh. There is nothing in terms of consequences that justifies the bond of marriage. The only compelling reason to get married is because it's God's way.
Not taxes.
Not really for taxes. And because of that, for the very same reason, that is the only compelling reason against intermarriage. You cannot do something which is inherently godly in defiance of God's will. The moment you're ready to acknowledge, and you have to be intellectually honest for this, not biased, but the moment with intellectual honesty you can acknowledge that the only powerful reason behind marriage is because it's Hashem's mitzvah, you then understand by default that marriage cannot exist when it flies in the face of the very God who created it. This is why, according to Jewish law, intermarriages are not marriages. They're a non-thing. We don't recognize them as a thing. It's not a thing that happened that's a negative thing. It's a non-thing. Because a marriage is a bond that is divine. It cannot be any other way. And that ties into the Kabbalistic conversation about soulmates, where we believe that every Jewish soul is divided into a masculine and a feminine side, and the masculine and the feminine side must reunite. Because people tell me, what do you mean I'm going to have a bad marriage with a non-Jew? Look how many Jewish bad marriages there are. What kind of an argument is that?
Only from one side.
And you know what? They may be right. But only a Jewish marriage is a marriage.
What about it going to a wife?
No, for a Jewish person. Because the holy bond of matrimony is godly, none of the consequences are integral to that. All the support systems and significant others and companionships and kids and all that, it's consequence. We have to move the conversation from consequence to core. If you're dealing with a marriage, a true marriage, it's only going to be in the way that Hashem envisions it, which is following Jewish law.
What about divorce?
This is the
What about
problem with
divorce?
secular
Yeah,
Judaism.
well, you just said,
Because you can get
go out and
divorced.
get married,
Yeah,
But also
but it doesn't work out. You can get the
sure. That's also a mitzvah.
I
And there's a whole Kabbalah on that. There's a Kabbalah on that. No, but it doesn't change the conversation about the essence of marriage. The essence of marriage remains the godly thing. And I think that this is, as we move closer to Mashiach, we get this insight also about our general approach to our marriage with God, to Judaism. For too many generations, Jews have been transmitting Judaism by focusing on consequence. If you do the mitzvahs, you get rewarded. You don't do the mitzvahs, you're going to burn in hell. You can't do this because you're going to make mom disappointed. Otherwise, you're going to make daddy proud. That's how you'll keep Bubby out of your nose. And like everything is consequence. And too many kids are being raised with this concept where Judaism is it's like this game of how many points do I get, or versus how many demerits, X's do I get, like reward and punishment.
It's a gold star.
Huh? A gold star Judaism. Yeah. I mean, look what's happening. It's not working. When you're raised with that concept of Judaism, it doesn't work. How much reward and punishment can you preach? Especially now, when there's so much more access to great consequences without Judaism. Okay? Let's be honest.
And is that what you've noticed when you're talking to kids?
I noticed that a lot. I noticed that a lot.
I work in the
Dealing with
school,
younger
I worked in
generation.
school for like a year, and those kids were probably some of the worst kids I've ever worked with in a school setting.
It's very hard. Because when that's the model that you preach, that's what ends up happening. The other way to go, and the truest way to go, is to preach. It's not a preach. It's first of all, to model. You have to model that kind of Judaism, obviously, right? Because if dad only goes to shul when he feels like he's getting reward or punishment, then what's that going to do for the kids? But we have to feel that we're in relationship with Hashem. When I tell people to keep kosher, I don't go with the whole talk of it's healthier, it's times cheaper. Like, no, it's what Hashem wants. It's what Hashem wants. And you know what? People wrap themselves around that faster and more powerfully than any wonderful speech you can give them about the wonders of kosher. So the whole Judaism has to be reframed in the sense of, I'm not trying, in Tanya class, we did this a whole bunch of times. You have these two parallel narratives, right? The Jew wants to go upwards, but Hashem wants to come downwards. Every Jew is trying to get holier and higher and greater, but Hashem wants to go lower and lower and lower. So as long as you're focused on yourself and your ego, you're trying to further your own agenda. The minute you can flip the switch and say, no, I'm here to fulfill what Hashem wants from this world. First, you take your ego out of it, it becomes selfless. Second of all, it becomes true. It becomes true. Exactly. And that's a real marriage, going in the ways that Hashem wants. Why get married? Because Hashem wants. Why not intermarriage? Because God doesn't want. That is the only real and true and lasting answer that never changes. So what's the Zohar saying over here? And we'll wrap this up because Ma'ariv time is very soon. This is the Kabbalistic side of this whole conversation. Underneath the idea of God's will, which is the ultimate point of it all, there is something to be said about an esoteric difference between the relationship between a Jew and a Gentile versus a Jew and a Jew. A Jew and a Jew, and here we're talking about at least from the woman's perspective, a Jew and a Jew is harmony, is balance. A Jew and a Gentile is to keep two polarities coming together, and therefore the clash continues. And if the clash doesn't continue, it explodes. Din meets din, and then there's a general brazenness, a general dinness. On the other hand, what does the Zohar finish over here? Concerning a woman who has relations with a Jew, the verse states, and you who cleave to Hashem your God are all living today. Why? Because the soul of the Jew comes from the spirit of the living God. Therefore, when a virgin woman does not cleave to the harsh din of the Gentiles and instead cleaves to a Jew, the rachamim prevails and she becomes fitting. Fitting.
Fitting for what?
Fitting. In the Zohar, the word is v'it kesharat. It's like kosher. In other words, she becomes, there's a better word for it, like wholesome, wholesome, whole.
So were the Midianite girls converted?
Oh, so here the Zohar says, and the commentaries kind of fill in the blanks, that was the difference between the females that had engaged in relationships before and the ones that had not. The ones that had engaged in relations before, that means that their din united with other din at one point and could never then be tamed properly into the Jewish people. The ones who did not, they could be converted. And for the first time, when the time would come to consummate a marriage, to go the wholesome regular route. And when that happens, then you're set. Somebody once came to the Rebbe and said, my wife, I'm supposed to be the king in the home. And she doesn't treat me like a king. So the Rebbe said to him, are you treating your wife like a queen? You treat her like a queen, she'll treat you like a king. Initiate, then respond. They will always give more, but we must give first. That's a takeaway for tonight. L'chaim.
Fine.